You know what's incredible? During the Dust Bowl, some storms were so massive they carried Oklahoma topsoil to the Atlantic Ocean. That's over 2,000 miles of American dirt blowing away. And that's just the beginning of this remarkable story of survival.
That's fascinating and terrifying when you think about the scale of environmental devastation those families faced.
Sam, the Joad family story captures this massive displacement. We're talking about over 2.5 million people who fled the Plains states during this period. And what's striking is how they faced this perfect storm of natural and economic disasters.
Well, let's dig into Tom Joad's character for a moment. Here's a man who spent 4 years in prison only to find his entire world had turned to dust while he was away.
You know, Sam, what's interesting about Tom? Statistics show that about 60% of ex convicts in the 1930s returned to crime, but Tom does something completely different. He becomes this powerful voice for social justice. And his mother, Ma Joad, she's like this incredible force of nature.
The way Ma Joad handles their situation is remarkable. How do you think she manages to maintain such strength throughout their journey?
Well, historical records show that women during the Dust Bowl often became the primary decision makers in their families, a massive shift from traditional roles. Ma Joad exemplifies this perfectly, especially when you consider that nearly 40% of migrant families were led by women during this period.
Hmm, that changes how we should view these events, not just as an environmental crisis, but as a massive social transformation.
And then there's Jim Casey, this former preacher who becomes a labor organizer. You know, during this period, there were over 4,000 strikes recorded in California alone. The conditions were just horrific. Workers earning maybe 75 cents for a 10-hour day.
Those numbers are staggering, and what's striking is how similar they are to some modern wage disputes we're seeing today.
Exactly right, Sam. And when they finally reached California, oh man, the reality hits hard. Records show that by 1935, there were over 350,000 migrants in California, but only about 65,000 jobs were available in agriculture. The competition was brutal.
That explains why the local reaction was so hostile. When you have that many people competing for so few resources,
Right. And here's what's fascinating. Studies show that communities that initially rejected these migrants experienced economic growth once they integrated them. But at the time, fear and prejudice dominated. The term Okie became such a slur that California passed a law in 1945 making it illegal to discriminate against people based on their state of origin.
that's such an important historical detail that often gets overlooked. How do you think this relates to modern migration issues?
Well, current research shows striking parallels. Today, we're seeing climate refugees facing similar prejudices and systemic barriers. The UN estimates that by 2050, we could see up to 200 million people displaced by environmental factors. That's almost 100 times the number displaced during the Dust Bowl.
Those numbers are chilling, and yet the human spirit of resilience remains constant.
You know what's powerful? The way these camps self organized. Historical records show that despite having nothing, these communities created their governance systems, shared resources, and even organized educational programs for their children. It's estimated that about 90% of camp residents participated in some form of mutual aid.
That kind of community organization in the face of adversity speaks to human resilience.
And here's what gets me. When you look at the economic data from that period, you see that the average migrant family earned just $300 per year. That's equivalent to about $5,800 today. Yet they still found ways to share what little they had.
So, what do you think are the biggest lessons we can take from this story today?
Well, when you look at modern displacement statistics and compare them to the Dust Bowl era, you see these eerily similar patterns. But there's hope too. Studies show that communities that embrace diversity and practice inclusive policies tend to be more economically resilient. It's like Joad says, we're the people that live. They ain't going to wipe us out. That spirit of survival and solidarity, that's what stands the test of time.
That brings it full circle, from environmental crisis to human resilience, from individual struggle to collective action.
And maybe that's the most powerful legacy of this story, how it continues to illuminate these connections between environmental justice, economic equality, and human dignity. The questions it raised in the 1930s are still the questions we're grappling with today.